for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Welcome. This is Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Today's Tuesday, September 1st. 243 days into the new year. 122 days left. We're live from the City of Angels Studios right here in Burbank, California. COA Vapor, makers of the Fade to Black E2s, Fade or Loose. Just go to the COA banner at jimmychurchradio.com. You can use the promo code Jimmy for the Fade or Not special. What is up, everybody? I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black. For KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planet. I'm your so humble host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? Tonight's a very, very special show. It's time to get educated. You're going to get a special degree in history from yours truly. We have special guest Vahan Setyan. We're going to be talking about the very cradle of civilization, where it all started, who was responsible, and yes, Gobekli Tepe. Tomorrow night, Larry Holcomb will be here. It might be Holcomby. We'll find out. His new book, Presidents and UFOs, A Secret History from FDR through Obama. We'll be discussing that tomorrow night. And then Thursday, David Hatcher Childress, right here on Fade to Black. Tonight, we'll be taking some calls later on tonight, 323-825-5045. You can also Skype in Fade to Black 14. Very excited about the MUFON Symposium. It is now 3 weeks away, September 23rd through the 27th at the Hotel Irvine down in Irvine, California. Just go to MUFON.com, MUFON.com, and your information is there, directions, tickets, all of that. And looking forward to hanging out with all the Fadernauts down there. It's going to be a good time. And the list is changing all the time. So there's going to be a lot of people down there, but you don't want to miss, of course, the Hangar One. I think they're calling it the Hangar One Hangout. Meet and greet, cast and crew. Everybody's going to be there. Even Mike Barra. Okay, so yeah, you want to come on down. It's going to be a good time. And the Skyfire Summit, which is the Travis Walton convention get-together out in Heber, Arizona. That's also going to feature David Hatcher Childress, Dr. Leo Sprinkle, Lee Spiegel, Tracy Torme, Ben Hansen, James Fox, Lynn Katai, Jennifer Stein, No Torres, Alejandro Rojas. That is going to be really, really, really cool. So you can go to skyfiresummit.com and check out all of the information there. I mentioned last night on the show with Jennifer Batten. That was a pretty cool show last night. Our new thing that we're going to be doing, it's called Fade to Blog. If you would like to write for us over here at Fade to Black. If you would like to write for us and get a blog going, send an email to Rita, and that's Rita at jimmychurchradio.com, and give her your information, and we'll tell you what to do and how to do it. But we're setting that up now. We're about ready to go. All right? And, this show has always been, and we've always embraced contributions and the family and everything. And this is an opportunity to turn down your cell phone, which is live right now. Okay, there we go. Just write Rita. Rita at jimmychurchradio.com. Fade to blog. Get you a blog going, and all of your thoughts and things out there in the world that you're concerned about, intrigued, spreading the knowledge, your research, all of that. Fade to blog. Write Rita at jimmychurchradio.com. All right? Yeah. Wow. Okay. I have been excited about tonight's show for a long time. And I want everybody, this is going to be one of those nights. Pen and paper, do some investigation, do some follow-up, but it's going to be enlightening. And not only is this about Gobekli Tepe, but and I'm going to save everything for Vahan when he comes on the show, but it's about modern academia, the mass media, other websites and stuff where historical information is not accurate out there. It's not. And it's time tonight to set the record straight. And his research, and look, I need to drive this home. We have researchers on here all the time. We have the ability to go out on the internet and read, and it's exciting. But there's some things out there that are just a bit funky. And tonight, we're just going to set the record straight. The show might upset a few people tonight. It's for some out there that have been doing research and checking things out throughout Egypt, Turkey, Armenia, Syria, Iraq, and what is out there. Well, there's been accepted paradigms that we roll with. Well, you know what? Tonight is going to be one of those nights where you're just going to go, what? And I promise it's going to be an amazing show. And so just get comfortable. Get ready. Follow us on Twitter, which is at JChurchRadio. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox, which is already completely off the hook and out of control. And just get ready. Email is Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. And with that, let's get this show cracking. I'm fired up. Today, Barry Gibb is 69 years old. Still got the pipes. I almost want to sing a Bee Gees song right now. I should do that on the air. Don't you hate that when you get those DJs that sing on the air and they think it's funny and they think it's cool? I'm tempted. Gloria Estefan is 58. The other day, Rita and I we did a road trip. We're on the road. And about a week ago, and she's got the USB stick, plugged in the car, and we're going through her files and listening. And it was interesting to see, what Rita, backs up on, what music is on her USB, and what popped up, Gloria Estefan, and I listened to that, and I just thought, man, what a great band, Yeah, it's good stuff. Gloria Estefan today, 58 years old. Also, Lily Tomlin is 76. Unbelievable. Our dead guy's birthday today. Yvonne DiCarlo, 1922 to 2007, died at the age of 84. She played Lily Munster, the wife of Herman Munster, on the CBS sitcom The Munsters for 2 years. Was that 3 seasons or 2? 3, 1964 to 1966. DiCarlo suffered a minor stroke in 1998 and later became a resident of the Motion Picture and Television Country House and Hospital right here down the street from the studio, Woodland Hills, where she spent her last year. She died from heart failure on January 8th, 2007. And there you go, at the age of 84. But Lily Munster, Yvonne DiCarlo, happy birthday. All right, let's light up Twitter right now. You know I'm going right here. What is your favorite Bee Gees song? Because it's Barry Gibb's birthday. Yeah, that guy, Barry Gibb. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Facebook is JimmyChurchRadio.com. Oh, I think it's just Jimmy Church Radio is the fan page, and also YouTube, which is Fade to Black. I think it's KJCR Fade to Black. If you want to go follow us there, and that's about it. Let's get out of here. Let's get this going. Tonight, Vahan Setyan is with us. And he's a very smart guy, a very intelligent guy, and a very well-spoken guy. So although the information is going to be coming in truckloads, you're not going to feel lost or intimidated. He's a great guy, and he knows what he's talking about. Tomorrow night, Larry Holcomb right here, Presidents and UFOs, A Secret History of FDR through Obama. And then, of course, Thursday, David Hatcher Childress. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Bespoke radio for the masses on the Game Changer Network and the one and only KGRA, The Planet. Everybody get comfortable. Let's do this. It's going to be a good one. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I gotta tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. Doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil 3-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Klutsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station where the Fader-Knots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. Did you like my Barry Gibb impression? Pretty good, huh? All right. How deep is your love? There you go. How do you mend a broken heart? Saturday Night Fever. I'm just going down the list here. I thought Barry Gibb was dead. You guys. Jive Talking. It's actually a pretty good song. They never really did a stinker. Oh, Mike Barrett jumping in tonight. Check out Mike. He's here on Twitter. On this day in history, 1985, the wreck of the Titanic was found 73 years after it sunk in the North Atlantic. It was a joint U.S.-French expedition. Yes, they found it. Fate or facts? In the human body, bacteria outnumber human cells 10-1. Oh, Lord. And here's another one for you. I had to do two. Heart recipients start to crave things that the donor once desired. Yeah. And I read that today, and that was sent to me. Thank you. And I was thinking about that. What happens? What is it that you start to crave? You know, suddenly one day you wake up and you put on a Boy Scout uniform and you start chasing your wife around the house with a fly swatter. You know, it's just some I don't know what's come over me. I just want. I mean, I don't know what is it that you start craving? Isn't that just bizarro? And I you know, it's a fact, I guess. So you got to believe it, but it's just like fill in the blanks, you know. All right, let's go. All the news that you knew nothing about. A package containing radioactive material sent via Federal Express to Texas A&M University has gone missing. The 27-pound package was signed for nearly 2 weeks ago, but the university says that they didn't get it. On Friday, the university's Office of Safety and Security sent out an internal email asking for assistance in locating the package. It's a medium-sized cardboard box. It's about 20 inches on a side, and it was sent from Edina, Minnesota, by the radioactive material producer Ritverk. That's R-I-T-V-E-R-C, Ritverk. FedEx records show that the package was signed for and received by somebody named Kay Housley. That's K-H-O-U-S-E-L-Y. Could be Housley. On August 21st. And the box is labeled radioactive material. And it is gone. 27 pounds of something. They went on to say in the release, don't worry about it, that the package itself doesn't, it's not going to harm anybody because it's so well packed. But what about when you open it up? And no word about what is inside of the package. All right, we sent it out today. We tweeted it out today. We put it out on Facebook. I've seen rats. I've seen yetis. I've seen faces. I've seen ghost women. I've seen howitzers, crabs, even elephant on Mars. Images are everywhere today. But this new image captured by NASA's Mars rover Curiosity, to me, is one of the most fascinating images of the Martian surface yet. I think it might be the picture of the century, as we so tweeted out today and put it up on Facebook. But this one needs explaining because there is a floating spoon on Mars. If you haven't seen the picture, it's pretty incredible. And when you look at the images, let's get those out. Reed, if you can tweet, Walter, Mike Barra, everybody, get those out there for me really quick. I can do it also during the break. But there's some other stuff, too, in the image that looks strange. It was spotted by members of the Unmanned Space Flight Forum in an image captured by the mass cam on Sol 1089 of the mission on August 30th. And once you spot it, once you see in the picture, once it's there, it's obvious on what everybody's talking about. It's there. It's a spoon. It's floating. I don't know how big it is. And it's floating. It looks like it's connected back to the rock. So is it floating in midair like a magic trick? I'm not saying that. But it's definitely floating. And it's definitely a spoon. I don't know what it's made of. Could be rock. Could be not. I don't know. But it is interesting. And there's also some other stuff on the right-hand side. If you look at the image, let's see here. Cat Vocals just sent this. Is this it? There it is. Okay, I'm going to retweet. Thank you, Cat. I'm going to retweet this right now. Boom. And take a look. When you look at this image, go to Twitter, @JChurchRadio, hashtag F2B. You'll see it. Big red circle. That's a floating spoon. I don't know how else to explain that. And look, if Mars is devoid of any civilization, advanced or otherwise, that is capable of manufacturing something like that, I'm sure NASA is going to have a more logical explanation. Not. That's a crazy picture. And if that is millions of years of erosion, why isn't there one next to it? If you look in the larger version of the picture, which we've also posted out there, you can see off to the right there's a couple of other strange things that are there that look like a spoon pointing in the opposite direction. But what's also weird about this image is it's not only the spoon, but take a look around. Look at these it looks, these straight lines, and it looks like, I don't know, where the sand is and where the rock is. I realize, but it looks very urban, doesn't it? It looks like some kind of urban development. But anyway, the spoon itself is incredible. And I just want an explanation of that. If it was something, that millions of years ago, I don't know how, was stuck in the mud, and it's a spoon, and it was stuck in the mud, and here it is, so many years later, there it is. But that doesn't look like any rock formation I've ever seen before. It's a spoon stuck in to the rock. It's pretty trippy. And if and look at the lines that are next to it in the rock, as you go back from left to right, look at the lines that are there. That's pretty bizarre. I've blown it up today. I've taken some really close looks at it. I've tried to debunk it and explain this away, but this isn't a pareidolia. This isn't that. This isn't a face. This isn't something crazy. This is a spoon floating in the air with a shadow underneath it, and it's right there. That's bizarre. That's a bizarre picture. And I just want some explanation. And if I'm at NASA, aren't I driving Curiosity straight to that? Aren't you just going right up to it and taking a look just to see what it is, maybe from the other side? Isn't that what you do? I'm looking at there's that. I'm looking, everybody's tweeting out the other spoon that's going in the opposite direction. Just somebody please explain. Absolutely amazing, fascinating. Yeah, I get the swamp gas stuff. Yeah, I get that. A bizarre story from Honduras. And I don't know if everybody has caught this today, but out of the Honduras claimed that a teen girl was prematurely buried last week. And a day after she apparently died, and she was pronounced dead. So they buried her, put her in a casket. The casket had a glass top to it. They entombed her. And then, according to the story out of the Telegraph, out of the UK, And I'm quoting here from the Telegraph. It said a teenage girl in the Honduras had mistakenly been buried alive and apparently woke up in her coffin, only to die before she was freed. Footage shows, and the photographs and the videos, just absolutely incredible, shows a frantic crowd smashing into the concrete tomb. And her name was Nessie Perez, 16 years old, because they heard her screaming from the inside. She had been buried the previous day. When they opened the coffin, she was dead. But according to all of the witnesses there, she was still warm, had bruises on her fingertips, and the glass viewing pane on her coffin had been smashed. It's like we've all had that nightmare, right? We've all had it. Wake up in a coffin, buried, 3, 4, 5, 6 feet of dirt above you, and that's it. It's over, right? Well, this apparently actually happened. Happened in the Honduras. The article is over at jimmychurchradio.com, the Facebook page, if you want to go and check it out. Let me look at the studio clock. British scholars have suggested, okay, everybody listen to this. British scholars have suggested that fragments of the world's oldest known Quran, which was discovered last month, may predate the accepted founding date of Islam by the Muslim prophet Muhammad. The Times of London reported that radiocarbon dating carried out by experts at the University of Oxford say the fragments were produced by between 568 AD and 645 AD. Muhammad is generally believed to have lived between 570 AD and 632 AD. That's not the big deal. The man known to Muslims as the Prophet is thought to have founded Islam after 610 AD, when the first Muslim community established at Medina, and which is in present-day Saudi Arabia, in 622 AD. I'm quoting here from Keith Small of Oxford's Library. He says, and I'm quoting, "This gives more ground to what may have been peripheral views of the Quran's genesis, one that, like Muhammad and his early followers, used a text that was already in existence and shaped it to fit their own political and theological agenda, rather than Muhammad receiving a revelation from heaven." This is going to upset a lot of people, and this is Fade to Black. Somebody out there is going to shut this show down one day. This is just, but it just may be. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Vahan Setyan is with us. It's time to get educated. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. When I come back after this short break, we'll be joined by Vahan Setyan. We're going to be talking Gobekli Tepe for the rest of the night. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Today, everybody, the Fadernauts and planet Earth is vaping, and I'm very proud to announce our very own e-juice. When we were approached by City of Angels Vapor about Fade to Black e-juice, I wanted to make sure that it was the very best and that the flavors were something that I could create myself, and we did just that. Introducing Fade to Black Fader Loops. This will take you right back to Saturday morning cartoons and your favorite bowl of fruity, loopy cereal. Just click on the banner or go to www.coavapor.com. Enter the promo code Jimmy for the Fader Not special. That's www.coavapor.com. Gobekli Tepe.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station.
Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you. And your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Let TalkStream Live transform the way you listen to radio. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile talk radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And this is Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
Yes.
We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Attention, all Fader Knots. Studio Dome has a special deal on their SD1 Bluetooth speaker. Just go to JimmyChurchRadio.com, click on their banner, enter the promo code Jimmy, and you get $40 off and free shipping on the SD1. It's voice activated, comes with a USB antenna, cables, and a carry bag. Never listen to your phone, tablet, or laptop speakers ever again. It's the only way to listen to Fade to Black. That's JimmyChurchRadio.com, Studio Dome banner, promo code Jimmy. Gobekli Tepe.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right, everybody, welcome back, Fade to Black. Tonight, very special guest, Vahan Setyan, is with us. We're going to get educated tonight, I promise. Pens and paper, we will be testing after the show. Tomorrow night, Larry Holcomb is with us. His new book, Presidents and UFOs, A Secret History from FDR through Obama. And then, of course, Thursday night, special broadcast with David Hatcher Childress right here on Fade to Black. But tonight, it's Vahan Setyan. He has been examining world mythology, language, and civilizations for the last decade. He's an independent researcher and regularly collaborates with scholars and researchers in various fields, including anthropology and Armenology. He continues with his collaborations with historians around the world to further examine, decipher, and reveal most of the prehistoric elements that continue to be hidden within the Armenian Highlands. He is the author of The Enigma of the Armenian Alphabet, Letters, and Protons and Paradoxes, a book that seeks to reopen a perspective into the world of antiquity and its languages, which has been generally hidden, disregarded, and overlooked for more than 120 years. In 2014, his book, Language as a Fingerprint, Perspectives on the Cradle of Civilizations and the Armenian Language, the first volume of its 4-volume work, was released. I would like to welcome to the program Vahan Setyan. Vahan, how are you tonight, sir?
Good, how are you, Jimmy? Thanks for having me.
I am fantastic. And so, you know what's funny? You're right down the street from the studio tonight. You came in from out of state, and so while you're here, we'll go and we'll go do it up somewhere around town before you get back
Sounds
out.
Great. Thank you.
Well, no, I'm a little upset that I didn't find out about this until this afternoon, but because. Well, you know, it might be better because you and I would probably be a little stuffed full of food and a little hungover for the show tonight. So, but,
by all means, thank you.
Yes, welcome to the program. And Vahan, I do this with everybody that is a first-time guest on the show, and which is this disclaimer. It's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation. We're going to start as friends. We're going to end as friends. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Bring it on.
Yeah, let's do this. Now, I have I've listened to your presentation at Red Ice Radio. I've seen the presentation you did here in Southern California on Armenian TV. Very, very good and very enlightening. But what I did take away from both of those broadcasts is you are passionate. And also, for the lack of a better word, Vahan, you're a little angry.
Yeah.
And I share that anger. And so tonight, although we don't have to get angry on the show, but it was one of those things where I said to myself, I have to interview. I have to talk. I just need to sit down with Vahan, and we need to have a conversation. So tonight we're going to do just that. And the audience, just so you know, every time we say Gobekli Tepe, the audience takes a drink. So by the end of the show,
they should.
Yeah, they should be pretty plowed. But I say that, Vahan, because we are passionate about what is going on over there right now. And Gobekli Tepe truly is, if not one of the most, it may be the most important discovery on planet Earth to this day. It is that important. What do you think Gobekli Tepe says for us and Orthodox academia that is trying to ignore it?
Well, the term Gobekli Tepe is a problem already because you're using a Turkish terminology to describe a more than 10,000-year-old artifact or a place name. So if most people do not know how old Turkey is, they automatically associate Turkish and Turkish heritage to Gobekli Tepe. Well, its actual name is Portasar in Armenian, which literally translates into Naval Hill, which Gobekli Tepe also says Naval Hill. So you have to take a much more ancient look of that place when you're actually trying to even start looking into the place itself.
Well, I understand. We're going to get into all of that, all of those details, but it is such an important discovery, and I think everybody wants its importance now to be part of them, and
sure,
it's because it's probably the oldest monolithic structure yet discovered. There are other megalithic structures around the world that you can't age rock. So who's to say that the Sphinx isn't older? It could be. There's sites throughout North and South America that could be older. It could be, but Gobekli Tepe is carbon dated to a point before civilization was even supposed to exist.
Sure.
Gobekli Tepe itself was not supposed to exist. It is truly that important.
It is, and well, first of all, you have to realize that if we are carbon dating a rock to be 10,500, let's say, before Common Era, we have to realize that the initiation point was much more earlier. I mean, it didn't just spring from the ground. It had to take several thousands of years, or even hundreds of years before that, for that place to even come up and to surface, and for those people to build. I mean, it takes time for people to examine the cosmos, understand nature, and so forth, for them to eventually build a temple like that. So just because we're carbon dating that to be 10,500 years old doesn't mean it can't be older, or the people who built that can't be older.
Yeah, isn't that the most shocking part of it? That's just the garbage that was thrown in, to hide it and bury it.
Sure.
Which is another interesting aspect that we'll talk about tonight. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It could literally be a couple of thousand. It could be much older than that. Yep. There are reports I was reading this week that there's a couple of other sites that are within stone's throw of there that are looking now, at 14,000 BC and 15,000 BC. What if it wasn't an organized civilization? and I'm talking about farming. I'm talking about, a government structure, a possible religious structure there. Who could possibly be walking around the Armenian area there? What was there? Was it Stone Age man? Did they even wear clothes?
Well, you have to look at it this way. When we say civilization, we, as you mentioned, we mean structured animal domestication, agriculture, and religious aspect, and astrotheology too. We have to not forget astrotheology, because you have to realize. Have you driven at night, late at night, and there is no light, only the stars? Imagine you being 10,000 or 10,500 years ago, and you're looking at the stars for hundreds or thousands of years. Can you imagine all the poetry and all the imagination that will take hold of you for you to start creating this astrotheology for yourself, the repetitive rotations of the cosmos and the stars and so forth. So you have to look at it as the location as a place where there was a great big transition from hunter and gatherers to a civilization. So that transition itself took place in the Armenian Highlands, because you see animal domestication there. You see farming. You see barley and wheat coming out of there. You see the oldest winery there. The oldest shoe was found there. And the oldest metallurgy and astrotheology, all the arrows point to Armenian Highlands. Now, we can say it's 15,000 years ago. We can say 50. I mean, we have Armenian petroglyphs that can be dated as far back as 18,000 years ago. And if you look at the petroglyphs themselves, it actually reflects not only just petroglyphs or hieroglyphs, but actually language too. You see that being replicated in much more recent astrotheology too, like Atlas, for example, carrying the Earth. You can see that petroglyph on the mountains themselves, on Ukhtaksar and Kermasar mountains.
Yeah, one of the shocking facts in world history, you just blew past it there, but I just want to remind the audience of something that you said. The world's oldest leather shoe, Armenia. Just wrap your mind around that for a second. As simple as it is, it's such a heavy statement. Now let's pull back forward. Let's start with today.
Yep.
One of the misconceptions about Gobekli Tepe, first and foremost, is the name. But for us tonight, we'll say Gobekli Tepe because we don't want to throw the audience off too much.
Sure.
But is that it's in Turkey. And the problem that I have with that, and as fundamental as this statement is, it's not Turkish. There is a difference, and right now, Gobekli Tepe, it's in Turkey. Gobekli Tepe is, but it's not Turkish. How old is Turkey? Let's just set the record straight right out for the audience. How old is Turkey?
Well, 700 years. I mean, you can go back maybe 700 years.
700 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so what? Before that, before 700 years ago, what was Turkey?
I mean, you have to name that place as ancient Armenia,
yes,
or Armenian Highlands. That's the only way you can actually understand ancient history, because as we go back in time, you have to visualize all the newer countries fading away, all the small republics and all those newcomers coming into play, fading away. And then you can have a much better perspective how big the Armenian Highlands was. I mean, it was covering Turkey, it was covering Upper Georgia, all the way to Iran, to Syria, and so forth. So you see how big the area was. So, and the problem is, it's not even a misconception or a misappropriation or even just an error when you say ancient Turkey. I mean, people actually publish books with names such as ancient Turkey. I mean, it's like me saying ancient United States.
Right. And that's the thing. We're starting here. But we need to establish when we're talking about this area, Today, and I'm speaking to the audience now, Vahan, not you.
Sure.
Today, yes. Okay. We're looking at borders, and those borders say Gobekli Tepe is in Turkey. But that doesn't, the power of suggestion there is that the Ottoman Empire or whoever established that and going back, all that's who built Gobekli Tepe, and that is simply not the case. So let's keep backing up. I want to remind everybody, if you go to jimmychurchradio.com, and I'm going to do this now in real time, there we have a gallery up for Vahan, and there are some maps there. There's some.
That's who built.
Up. That's me. And all you do is click on, let me see which one works correctly. And I believe we are a go. Okay, so yes, you can just click on the gallery right there. You can also click on the yellow banner that says Vahan Setyan on Fade to Black September 1st. If you click on that, that will also take you to the subpage, and you can go through the gallery there too as well. Either way, you'll still be able to listen to the show. You can also do it from the homepage. You can go back to the subpage. But there are maps, and there's some illustration and images of the Armenian alphabet, and we'll be going through all of that tonight with Vahan. Okay, so, oh, excuse me, I didn't hit my cough button, but that happens to me once in a while.
Stop smoking.
Yeah, no, it's not that. It's called coffee in the throat. Yes. Okay. Stop smoking. Oh, now, Gobekli Tepe sits on the Turkish-Syrian border, modern day
Turkey.
Topographic. Yeah, modern day Turkey. How many miles is it from the Syrian border?
That's a good question. I mean, several hundred miles.
And do you ever freak out with what's going on with ISIS and the issues that are going on over there with, Palmyra and all of these historical sites?
I mean, it's petrifying, but you have to realize that same thing was happening on ancient times when Christianity came. Christianity just destroyed everything what it saw. So we're just basically have videos now of ISIS doing it, the same thing.
Hey, did you hear the intro? Did you hear my news segment on the show tonight?
No.
Okay. No. The University of Oxford over in England has dated the oldest Quran now.
Oh yeah, this. Oh yeah.
Yeah, can you believe that? 50, maybe 75 years before Muhammad. Yeah. And if this, oh man, as if things aren't upset in the world right now enough.
Well, yeah.
But can you imagine if that actually like gets hold and is able to run for a while? What that's going to mean?
It's creating waves already. I mean, I don't know why researchers have to say that for people to realize it's all it's all a fable. But but when you say things like that, it tells you how different academia approaches on things and how different the perspectives are, which comes to our point here.
Yes, it does. Do you think that that Tehran or Saudi Arabia or some of the official sides of things over there are going to respond to this? You have to. Oh, you mean the destruction of ancient history? No, I'm talking about the Quran dating. Because I mean that obviously puts everything on its ear,
sure.
And everything that Muhammad and everything that they do and say, it's in a direct contradiction of their own beliefs. Do you think that officially that they would respond to it and say that it's all BS?
Well, there's going to be more violence. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be absolutely nuts.
Yeah. I mean, you don't sit down and academically discuss it. There needs to be more people killed.
Right. Yeah. Welcome to the show, Vahan.
Yeah.
That was there you go. All right. Now, what is taught? What is taught today? Do you think that when I say Gobekli Tepe in Turkey, when I say it on this show,
sure.
is that the way that it's represented in books that is that and I don't want to be negative, but that Turkey is older than it is, and that this is the geographic lines and this is the way it always was, and the Armenian side of things, how it actually influenced that entire area all the way down to ancient Sumer over to Egypt, that part is misrepresented.
Well, it's grossly misrepresented. I mean, you really don't need to be a historian or a linguist or graduate from Harvard to use intellectual honesty when you examine all these things. I mean, logic is missing, chronology of events is missing. People who, let's say, would not know how to decipher a language would associate language with something that's unrelated. And because, let's say, they're a professor at Harvard, they have a lot of value and they carry a lot of weight. So their perspective or opinion goes. And all those people who actually come forward and say, no, that's not true, are quote unquote historical revisionists. So that's basically that's what the problem is. That's all those people who want to say something truthful, and which is beyond the academia or whatever the perspective that the academia has been fossilized in, then you're an outcast.
Why do you think that is?
Well, you have to look at it this way. There is a lot of influence coming from different governments and institutions to provide the agenda, or you might say a curriculum of what needs to be taught. I mean, once you reveal, for example, once you reveal the history of the Armenian people, let's say them being natives to those lands and them living for thousands and thousands of years, then of course, Turkey is going to say, well, of course, these are your lands. We can't acquire those lands from you anymore. But, they're trying to disassociate Armenians, let's say, from those ancient lands. So they would say, well, you're a newcomer too, and so are we. So this land belongs to us as much as yours, for example. The time has changed.
Yeah, but the history is established in for the Armenian and for all of the dynasties going back to Leo and before. We're talking about 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 BC.
Yeah.
And other artifacts, and then you have Karahunj, and you have things that establish metallurgy and fine art and sculpture, and the sculpture and some of the carvings that is there is astoundingly old. Yep. I mean, it's the oldest of the old. Mm-hmm. But when and I'm gonna call it as I see it. It's not the Armenian culture that is talked about when we talk about the first of everything.
Right. And the thing is,
the first Christian church, Armenia was the first country to establish Christianity.
Yeah.
And that isn't taught anywhere. Nobody knows about that. Why? I just don't understand why that is. It should be the exact opposite.
Well, about Christianity, almost everybody knows, but when it comes to them being such an old nation and such an old people, then it has become much of a political, game. I mean, 150 years ago, all what we see now was established already by the German British academia about how old the Armenian language is, how old they are as a nation, as people. And then when the genocides came forward, a lot of massacres went through. The genocide itself, 90% of the population was perished. Everybody just ran wherever they could. So eventually, all the historical books started to be rewritten, by the people in power. So you can see the Armenian people are behind 100 years in the academia. Now we are coming back with all these different perspectives, and science is actually helping us to unearth all this from ash and debris. We are using archaeology, genetics, archaeology, geology, and all these hard disciplines, and we're trying to unearth all this. Now it's coming to light, and more feathers are being ruffled now. all those people that thought that it was a distant memory, now it's coming back. So there's a lot of resistance.
One of the I've made this point before on the show. When I first moved to California in the early '80s, and I moved to Pasadena, which has a large Armenian culture there. Well, large by Armenian standards, and it's there, and you know what I'm talking about. Glendale wasn't even in the picture, or Burbank. It seemed like Altadena and Pasadena was this Armenian culture, and the first friends that I had made were Armenian, and this is the truth. I went, "You're Armenian? What is that?"
Right.
And that is, I am just an example of culture about the Armenian people. It's when what I know now and what I knew then, it's astounding to me. And I had Graham Hancock on the show, or Robert Schock, and I said to Graham, Graham, why did everything that Armenia represents, and we talk about Stonehenge, but we don't talk about Karahunj. Why is that? I don't understand. He said, Jimmy, I'm just as shocked as you are. It's amazing to me that Armenia is in the first part of conversations when we talk about archaeology, when we talk about lost civilizations, the cradle of civilization, and where things, there's a progenitor, there's a starting point for everything.
Sure.
And it's pointing more and more towards Armenia now because of modern research, but it is just something that it's like the redheaded stepchild of history.
Sure, and it's going to take time. I mean, more and more people like Hancock and Bouval and people like him in let's say outside of the United States and Britain and South America and in Italy, whatever they're doing now, they're only few, but their perspectives are much more closer to intellectual honesty than I've found in the academia myself.
We're going to be up against a break here. When we come back after the break, we're going to start to establish a timeline with different discoveries and influences in the region off of the Armenian Highlands. And you're going to do some hand-holding here. You're going to so when we come back, we're going to start with the Armenian Highlands. What is it? Where is it? And how large is it? And because we're going to be referencing that throughout the evening tonight. This is Fade to Black. Our special guest tonight is Vahan Setyan. And we're talking about rewriting history tonight for everybody. Get your pens and pencils out. We'll have a test after the show. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be back right after this short break. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
Hey everybody, what's up? Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and check this out. The 2015 MUFON Symposium will be held this September 24th through the 27th in beautiful downtown Irvine, California. Expanding ufology, opening new doors in academia, industry, and media. Former Defense Minister of Canada Paul Hellyer will be there in person. Former CNN news anchor Cheryl Jones, TV news journalist Jaime Maussan, and MUFON's chief photo analyst Mark D'Antonio. They're just a few of the growing list of names for the 2015 event. It's September 24th through the 27th at the beautiful Hotel Irvine. Get your tickets today at MUFONSymposium.com. That's MUFONSymposium.com. Gobekli Tepe.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Did you ever turn to your radio for your favorite talk show to find that it's been preempted for this?
In the air to deep right center. Back goes Lewis to the wall, and it's out of here!
Or this?
And I'm ashamed of you, Hillary, for voting for it.
Do you have a favorite talk radio program that's not available in your city? Just go to TalkStreamLive.com for links to the best streaming talk radio shows. At TalkStream Live, you will find live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All your favorites are here. With such a large selection, you will also discover some new favorites. On the go and still want to listen? With the mobile smartphone, simply type TalkStream Live on your internet browser. Now you can take internet radio with you. You will also find hundreds of music, news, and sports streams. Best of all, the TalkStream Live directory is free and there's never a login required. Remember TalkStreamLive.com, the fastest route between you and your favorite talk radio show.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back. This is Fade to Black. Tonight we have Vahan Setyan with us. We're talking about the very cradle of civilization. We're going to straighten history out tonight. Tomorrow night, Larry Holcomb is with us. His current book is Presidents and UFOs, A Secret History from FDR through Obama. And then on Thursday, a very special broadcast with David Hatcher Childress. Yeah, we're not going to do Fader Night on Thursday. Fader Night got bumped for DHC. All right. Now, Vaughn, I'm just going to let everybody know what we're looking at here. If you go to the gallery, go to image number 7, and there's a map there of United Armenia. Pull that map up, and we're going to talk about this right now. So, Vaughn, when I'm looking at this map, for the audience, they've probably... have got it pulled up by now. Which area, what is the Armenian Highlands? So let's just start there.
Well, you see the borders around, the heavy borders around Turkey and all the way to Georgia into Syria and Iran?
Yes.
Okay, well, that represents the convergence of evidence that we have of the entire history of the Armenian people from ancient times to the present. In other words, that represents all the archaeology, genetics, all that combined with artifacts that connect Armenian people to those lands throughout thousands of years.
Oh, you're talking about the map with the red arrows on it?
Yes.
No, I'm not on that map. I'm on the ancient countries map.
Ancient countries. Let me see which
the black and white map.
That's what I mean. The black and white map.
Okay.
Yeah, when you look at that, that's actually how big the Armenian Highlands was.
Oh! I got you.
So I'm trying to put people into a perspective of how to look history in a snapshot that goes as far as 10,000 years old.
So Armenia went from the Caspian Sea to the Black Sea, all the way down to the Mediterranean. Yes. Armenia today is completely landlocked, and for the audience, I want you to look over where it says Armenia here, where the letter I is in Armenia, about the size of the letter I. That's Armenia today, that little section right there. It used to stretch from the Caspian Sea to the Mediterranean, all the way up to the Black Sea, and you can see on the south, Mesopotamia. Okay, well, and I'll let you. I sound like
sure.
You're the guest on the show. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. Actually,
I'm so passionate about this I just can't put it into words. Okay.
Well, I'm glad you are, because I think that we need people like you to to speak the truth of any ancient history. Not just Armenian, just Native American, what have you. But if you look at the history itself, you have to realize that when you compare Armenian lands today, as opposed to, let's say, 5,000 or 6,000 years ago, can you imagine all those lands are now part of other nations? And
yes.
they unearth Armenian artifacts, and they never say to the world that they found Armenian artifacts. They say, let's say Georgia would find something ancient, they would say, Georgian artifact, or Turkey would find something, they would say either it's Anatolian, which is a nonsense word itself.
Yes.
So they will never say that's an Armenian artifact, although it is. I mean, if you just compare whatever we find in Armenia and then whatever you find in Turkey, it's the same thing. Even the symbols and whatever has been carved on the Gobekli Tepe or Portasars, let's say, that the tons of rocks that's surrounding the area, all those small bits and pieces, even the pictographs, can be found in Araratian Kingdom or Urartu, which is also incorrect to say, but those things have been found as Urartian or Armenian artifacts even before Gobekli Tepe was found in 1994.
Why do you think they have this momentary lapse of reason? Because that's exactly what it is. They know it's very easy to do the right thing or the wrong thing, and the right thing is to say, check this out.
Yeah,
it's a really cool sculpture, an Armenian sculpture, an Armenian cave, an Armenian pottery, Armenian. It's so easy to do. They know that it's not Turkish or Georgian or from Kazakhstan or whatever.
Right. But the general public doesn't. I mean, if you have no concept of ancient history, let's say you're a tourist, they go to Turkey, and you see all these different artifacts, and it's represented as, let's say, Turkish artifacts. How would you know whether it's true or not if you haven't really studied?
No, you're too. Yeah,
you wouldn't. You wouldn't. So they capitalize on the ignorance of the masses just for them to project all this. I mean, with all the false books being written and misrepresentations and so forth. I mean, even Andrew Collins, as good as he is, even he has mentioned, let's say, ancient Armenia as, let's say, southeastern Anatolia.
Right.
Anatolia is already east. So when you're saying southeastern Anatolia, you're saying southeastern east. It doesn't make any sense. So we have to be careful with our terminology, because that alone will make a difference. That's where logic and the reasoning comes in, which is lacking in a lot of books and even peer-reviewed articles. When people say, well, you have to prove through a peer-reviewed article, I mean, just because it's peer-reviewed doesn't mean it's true. It's just several people just agreed upon the facts that are presented or the opinions that are presented. So we can easily find errors in reasoning, even in scientific journals. I mean, if you're going to, let's say, discover Gobekli Tepe, I don't think that Armenians were very surprised to even find that, because they knew from their folklores and artifacts and their petroglyphs that something was there already.
Right. If I go to Turkey today, right, I go to Gobekli Tepe and I've got my backpack and I'm a tourist and I got my water bottle, right, and my camera. And I go and I take a bus and I go to Potbelly Hill and I go, is there any mention ever from a tour guide in materials, anything about Armenia at all?
Not that I have seen. I mean, if we're going to have Klaus Schmidt to represent it, he has sometimes mentioned it's in ancient Armenia. But when you're going to go into a Turkish museum, they're not going to say Armenian artifact. They're not going to say ancient Armenian artifact. Sometimes they would say it's Hittite, or they would say Hatti, or any other designation except Armenian Highlands, because once you do that, can you imagine all the other artifacts that needs to be rebranded, all the excavations and all the books and textbooks that have to be rewritten just to change the name into its proper place. That's why I wrote the book, the first volume, not for me to misrepresent or bring forward untrue perspectives, but for me to realign history into its proper place, how it should be represented, and how it was before the Armenian genocide. Everything changed. Even the universities now in the United States, they plainly say, let's say, that Armenians are newcomers to those lands. They only have been there from 6000 BCE, or they invaded those lands, those terms, and they quote Herodotus, which is one of the people who has really misrepresented history altogether. So they follow that kind of a terminology, and so they represent Armenians as colonists to those lands. They have been living there for thousands of years.
When let's back up. Okay, I have so much on my mind. Let's back up. Let's do some of the first. The Armenian alphabet was established in 400 AD, 401.
404.
404. Okay, I was pretty close. I don't pass the test, but pretty good for a white guy. So that's at 400 AD. The Christian church was established there in 301. And the rest of the world was the Romans didn't do it for another 50 years, 60 years. So that first was there. Then let's back up before that. When was King Leo?
Well, King Leo is in the ADs, 15th and 14th.
Yeah, he's 15th century, and then at 0. Who was at 0? Man, that sounded really academic. But at 0, what I'm trying to establish here is that Armenia was fully established. It was a culture that was there. It was a kingdom that was expanding. It was established. It went all the way to the borders of Persia, to Mesopotamia. The trade routes were established. There were things that were all happening, and it seemed like it was a star pattern that was happening right around 0 and before. You can go back to a millennia before,
sure.
But everything tended to point right back to Armenia, didn't it?
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, the first thing that you mentioned, the invention of the alphabet, it was not invented. The Armenians had the letters before him. So people say he reintroduced it. Then we come to another problem of, if we had it, why did he find the need to reintroduce it? So we have a real problem with tradition versus what scientific disciplines have to say. We see the same letters, several thousand years going back.
Mm-hmm.
So he didn't really invent anything. We had it. Even 200 years before that, Philostratus, one of the Greek historians, he even had a written book that we actually have in Greek original scripture. And he actually writes that he found this leopard, and around his neck there was this necklace with Armenian letters on there. 200 years before the guy supposedly invented the letters. So there's a big misconception about the Armenian letters, and that's a very big problem, because once you say to the world that these people didn't have literature and they had to wait until 404 AD for them to start writing, you're really separating them with not only their literature but ancient history too. You can't have people who know geometry, geology, metallurgy, have been around for thousands of years, have all these kingdoms, but not have their own literature. Their own god of literature was Dir, and it was a national god. How can you have a god of literature but do not have a national literature on your own?
That's interesting. It would be impossible.
Yeah, that's completely illogical for you to say these people didn't have literature. If you're going to say that these people used other people's letters, well, we have evidence that, even the letters themselves, let's say, for example, from Hyksos, who were the Hykaisian tribes, who came down from Armenia all the way to Egypt, and then they brought the Armenian letters, and then the Phoenicians took it, and then they gave rise to Latin and Greek and so forth. So when you say 400 was the starting point for their literature, you're separating them from the Haikaisan tribes that went into Egypt to bring monotheism there.
When I looked into language and alphabets and history over the years, going back, every reference, I haven't been to Wikipedia to check out what they have to say about it today.
Good.
But
Don't go to Wikipedia.
Yeah, right, exactly. But I imagine, well, you know what? Speaking of Wikipedia, if I went to Wikipedia right now and just looked up alphabet, the first alphabet, I bet you it says Phoenician.
Yeah.
You want to take that bet? $20 right now on the air live.
I'll give you 1,000.
Right. It's amazing to me. It really is. When you jump back to one of the things that is not here is you. I've seen you. You have an image of. Looks like a sarcophagus or a sculpture out of ancient Egypt, 3000 BC, 3500 BC. And it has got very specific Armenian text, an alphabet on the front of it. Hey, Rita, can you post? She's probably got that image. We'll throw that up in Twitter really quick. What does it say on that sculpture?
Well, the thing is, the letters themselves are Armenian in format in every respect, but we have to realize that once you have or you absorb or even you imitate, let's say the Armenian letters, and you start writing something in your own cultural tangent, then even though let's say the letters would be there, but it would be intelligible, let's say in Armenian. Let's say if you can write with the English letters and you're trying to express Greek phonology, for example. So if you use that format, you would see that even though you see those letters as a replica of the Armenian letters, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's written in Armenian itself. It's just the format is used. A template. Basically, the Armenian letters have been template for the Phoenicians, for the Greeks, for the Latin, and it has evolved throughout time.
How do you think the cross-pollination happened with that? Do you think the Egyptians went up to the Armenian Highlands?
No, Hyksos. Actually, have you heard of Hyksos tribes?
Yes.
They're actually Haikaisan, Haikaz, Haik, and Hyks. You have that variation in phonology. There were Armenian tribesmen from Armenian Highlands who came down to Egypt. Actually, the second time around, they had another migration, initial migration, several thousand years before that. But the second time when they came down, they brought the chariot. They brought certain metallurgy that Egyptians didn't know. Actually, that's what I'm saying. All these things are written in books, but people don't actually pay attention to them. It's written that Hyksos brought the chariot, and then after that, you see in the Egyptian pyramids of the replication of the chariots.
Say that again. Say that again. Hyksos brought chariots to Egypt.
Yeah, of course. They brought the chariots, and I have this. I have this in my book as a reference, and there are numerous references that I can easily disseminate to people who want to know. But they actually brought the chariot. Even in Egypt, there were certain kinds of a wood that was only available in the Armenian Highlands, so they had to go up. They need to trade. So once they brought it down, they brought their language. That's why sometimes you see even in the Egyptian language, you see the Armenian language too. For example, for the eagle, the Egyptians would say artiv, and Armenians would say artiv. Egyptians would say for the lion aryuts, and Armenians would say aryuts. So you see the cross-pollination already there. And when you're bringing in all these letters, you don't expect people just to rob it from you and then never to use you as reference. But that's what happened. They started imitating it. They started taking it away. And then after thousands of years, when the academicians are now trying to decipher all this, they don't connect the dots. They just cannot see this as being a transition and which it comes down to the 404 in the invention of the alphabet. Because if you're saying that these people just had letters in 404 AD, then how would the Hyksos have the letters already 2,000 years before that? So it's an artificial separation between the two.
If they brought the, I know this sounds fundamental, but if they brought wheeled chariots into Egypt, Mesopotamia is right there. We know what the historical chronology is when it comes to the wheel and mathematics and the things that came out of Mesopotamia. What, did the influence go from Mesopotamia north into the Armenian Highlands, or did it go from the Armenian Highlands south into Mesopotamia before it got to Egypt?
Well, look at it this way. If you read the Sumerian inscriptions, they say that their ancestors came from the land of Ararat or Arada, which is already in Armenia. Not only that, I mean, you can find Armenian words in Sumerian language too. You can find the how they distinguished Armenians from Sumerians themselves. They call Armenians differently. We say Ara, they still call them Ara, meaning, light-skinned and so forth, and bright. So they already could see the difference between those Armenian Highlanders and the Sumerians. There is a lullaby in the Sumerian inscription that talks about a baby being, taken back and forth for them to sleep, to rock the baby to sleep. And they say Ururu as in rock the baby, and Armenian it says Oror. So we already have this language which we're comparing apples with apples now. So you can see the connection already there, even in inscription, how the language itself has influenced down to Mesopotamia and to Sumer. And you will also have to realize that when the Armenians and the Sumerians were trading, there were no Akkadians at that time. There were no Assyrians at that time. The Sumerian civilization goes back as far as 55 to 5800 BC. So it takes another 2,500 years for even the Semites to come from northern Africa and Saudi Arabia into those lands.
What about DNA? What kind of tracing happens when you look at DNA from the Armenian Highlands and its influence out in east, west, north, and south?
Well, if you look at archaeogenetics and language itself, and they actually coincide with one another. They take back, let's say, Armenians back to 7,000 or 8,000 years there, and then they even mention that the Armenian people themselves, their DNA hasn't, the 80% of their DNA hasn't changed from let's say 4,000 BC. You have these genetic links one another. Even that is politicized. You even have link between Armenians themselves all the way to Ireland, to Basque, to Welsh. I don't think people know about this, but several months ago, there was a study done that the closest genetic link that they found in Italy was in Tuscany. The closest link genetically was in Armenia. That coincides with what Robert Ellis said 150 years ago when he wrote the book, The Armenian Origins of the Etruscans. And of course, we know the Etruscans were the forefathers of Romans.
What do you think is there must be something hidden, and I'm talking about text and stuff in Armenia or in Turkey that is it's either hidden, it's repressed, or it has not been discovered yet that will explain everything to everybody. There must be, there's too much culture there. There's too much history, and there's not that kind of documentation today. Where is it all at? Besides caves, and you know what I'm talking about. We'll talk about that sculpture in a second.
Sure. I mean, if you're going to have 90% of the ancient Armenia part of other nations, you don't allow, let's say, Armenians to come in to do the excavations and for them to compare with artifacts, because there are a lot of things that can be explained away through Armenian language and their culture. I mean, you don't need to guess anymore what that is. I mean, you just have to compare artifacts with one another, but they just don't allow that. They are trying to inherit something that it's not theirs, and the Armenian people are having a hard time getting a hold of these artifacts which their ancestors have built. I mean, it's all political. I mean, you have a lot of influence in the academia too. I mean, I can refute a lot of peer-reviewed articles, even books that have been written as textbooks in universities, just by simply looking at the language itself, looking at the connections themselves. You can use the Armenian language to decipher even words that people use today. They don't think it's Armenian, but it is. I can see that in the Sumerian language, in Polynesia, in India, in Sanskrit. I mean, we find words, for example, when you find a word in the etymological dictionary, they will say Sanskrit, Persian, maybe German, and then will go all the way back, and they will say Indo-European or Proto-Indo-European, for example. Well, what is that Proto-Indo-European language? It's a very safe and obnoxious way of representing something just to be safe without even calling it Armenian.
Is part of it because there is a social block of the Armenian alphabet? In other words, it's difficult to read. And when you look at Cyrillic or other, Greek or Latin alphabets, it's easier to make that connection. Mm-hmm. So that's the safe road out, and they don't want to complicate things.
Absolutely, it's just a bus stop that people have agreed upon. I mean, people have agreed upon. You know what? Okay, let's put Sphinx at 2500 BC. That's when it was built, and let's build our conclusions based on those premises. But if the premises are not factually valid, you're not going to get factually valid conclusions. So our premises needs to be rewritten. We have to, again, realign history into its proper place, and we need people like Hancock and Collins and Bouval, people like that, to really establish this, and eventually to be intellectually honest, to call it as what it is. If it's going to be an Armenian artifact, call it as an Armenian artifact, because you need the help of the Armenian people and their language to decipher all this stuff. I mean, if we can find the Armenian letters or even language in all these different civilizations throughout time, why not use the Armenian people and their language to decipher all this? I mean, maybe there's a better connection, and there's the much more presentable and much more intellectually honest perspective that we can have, as opposed to just beating around the burning bush.
Well, yeah, you're rolling that rock uphill. It's a difficult road. And then you have people like Hancock, and we keep going back to him, but he's open-minded, and he realizes that history is completely wrong. But what are the steps that you have to take with this?
I think more and more people just need to be educated, and the thing is, they need to be educated from a logical and critical thinking standpoint. We can't really just rely on fossilized history to guide us into deciphering ancient history. As you mentioned, Gobekli Tepe revolutionized the way we look at ancient civilization. So we have to take the Gobekli Tepe and its revelation and then help it, through it, to change things in history, which of course is going to put a lot of professors and their years and years of history into garbage because their premises were incorrect.
Well, they don't even want to admit that Gobekli Tepe exists.
Right.
And that's the truth. I don't know if you saw the video of Graham Hancock and Zahi Hawass, right, from a couple of months ago.
Zahi is a disaster. I mean, the way he misrepresents things.
Yeah, he truly is, but he's also a representative of what is messed up in academia too, as well.
There you go. He's an authority. Again, see, we're appealing to authority, which is another logical fallacy. So if he's going to be authority, and as he's going to get a grant of $200,000 a year for him to represent a certain perspective of Egyptology, with no leeway to change things as evidence comes forward, of course you're going to have fewer and fewer people to go against him, because the entire financial backing is behind him. They're not behind Hancock. They're not behind Collins, because they're considered as historical revisionists. But if you look at their writing, they actually make more sense than the entire academia in Egyptology.
Isn't that crazy? And one of the things that Hawass said, and I'm not pointing directly at him, he's a representation of a broad spectrum of what is accepted, that paradigm. And one of the things that he said, and it was shocking to me, I've never heard of Gobekli Tepe. How can you say that in 2015 in front of a room full of people? I've never heard of Gobekli Tepe. But that is exactly, of course he has, and of course he knows all about it, but he wants to deny the very existence of it because it upsets everything that has been written and the way that they have established themselves about what was first and what is real.
I agree.
Shocking to me. Just shame on Zahi, man. We have done so many Zahi memes. Oh, man. Okay, now I want to talk about Karahunch for a second because that's where my brain is as we were talking. I thought about one thing. Karahunch, and I'll let you tell everybody what it is exactly, but it's astronomical aspects and the holes that are in the rocks were pointing towards specific things at a date that is just outrageous. You're talking about 5,000, 7,000 BC.
Right.
A very deliberate astronomical aspects to what is going on at Karahunch.
Sure.
That shows an advanced knowledge. I mean, way beyond the scope of things. And Gobekli Tepe does too. But Karahunch also is equally as important. And we talk about Stonehenge, and we can talk about different things around the world that, these megalithic structures that have an astronomical aspect to them. But Karahunch may be the oldest and may be the first. What is Karahunch? And and you know what's even more fascinating? What does Karahunch mean?
Well, it's actually called two ways. Karahunch, now they're actually saying it should be called, Zorat's Karer. And it relates to the rocks. Kar means a rock. So, it can be called like a mass of rocks or echo of rocks. Or a conglomerate of rocks, you have different perspectives of it, but the concept itself surrounds around the rocks themselves, which has been built around. They say it's built around the Cyprus constellation, which represents, let's say, the dove up in the air.
Mm-hmm.
So, as I described before, if you have to put them into. You have to put yourself into that perspective. If you're seeing all the stars every night and you're trying to replicate and copy the stars into the Earth itself, you're going to look at those stars and how they go around about throughout the years, and you're trying to imitate that. So when you have people like that, when they're examining stars, that actually shows you that they not only can understand stars and their rotations, but they can navigate. Because if you know the stars, you can navigate, correct? So that's the reason why we even see some petroglyphs with boats on the carvings, or even petroglyphs on the mountains. That shows that these people were able to navigate around the world, go down, let's say, to Egypt, because 10 or 15,000 years ago, the Armenian Highlands was an island. It was covered with a lot of water. That's when the ice was melting at the end of last ice age.
Mm-hmm.
So you had the ability to navigate because of the waters. So you can see the reason why, let's say, those people would come down to Egypt to explore different parts of the world when the water was so high.
There is an image that's up in Twitter right now of Karahunch. Thank you for that. I think Walter posted this. Just go to @JChurchRadio, #F2B. You can look at this image of Karahunch. It is absolutely stunning. It sits in Armenia proper today. Where is it? What part of Armenia is Karahunch?
It's in the lower part of the Armenia.
And now I want everybody, as you're looking at this illustration, even though you can't see it here, and I'm sure that some more images are going to pop up, some of these rocks have holes in them.
Yeah.
And you are able to, and certainly we can, with computer technology today, we don't know if some of the rocks were moved, but we know what they were looking at, and the holes line up to another rock, so you could look through the two of them and then line up the stars and, of course, the seasons and also map and know direction. It's absolutely phenomenal.
Sure, and there were some idiots out there that were saying that those holes are actually new, and that's a place where they used to wrap the horses around. Why would you put a hole all the way up all the way to the top where you might break? It's just.
Oh, I would love to know who said something like that. Yeah. Yep. I'm looking at one of the rocks here with one of the megaliths here with the hole. Yeah, that's. I could see the horse trough, the watering hole next to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, we have to realize, I know it looks a little bit crude and it looks primitive, but you have to realize that those people at those times have the ability to examine the stars and astrotheology, how crude it was. We have to give them more respect than they actually, they don't get, because we have to realize what they were seeing. How did they look at things? If they're able to do a systematic agriculture and animal domestication, metallurgy, you have to understand that these people knew chemistry, these people knew mathematics, however crude it may have been for them to be able to do all this stuff. So if everything is coming about and all the arrows of civilization point to Armenia, something must have happened there for them to be able to think critically and think beyond of just hunting and gathering.
Well, that's a great question. It's almost Ancient Aliens needs to do a special on Armenia and Karahunj. Yeah. And one of these, I'm going to back up. I'm going to retweet this one right here. This one carving, this sculpture on one of the rocks, I hate to go there, but I'm going to. Looks very much like your typical gray, your alien gray. Do you ever take that leap that all of this crazy knowledge, at 7,000 BC, 10,000 BC, Gobekli Tepe, 12,000 BC, 14, did somebody share this knowledge with the Armenian people?
As far as I would go, based on all what I have seen, or even just what the evidence says, I would say that they had some kind of exposure to some kind of knowledge that they were able to absorb and use for their benefits, for them to initiate a civilization. All you see there is, let's look at the petroglyphs. They're not just animals. They're symbols too. They're very, very unique compared to other petroglyphs around the world. You can actually see shapes. They look letters. Even the Armenian letter A is painted right all the way there in the petroglyph several thousand years ago. So I see even the language itself being developed there initially, a systematic language, which has absorbed, which the people have absorbed, and whoever came out of Armenian Highlands took that language and it altered and changed throughout the thousands of years, because we can find commonality in language all the way back to Armenia. If the Indo-European language has its roots in Armenian Highlands, I wouldn't suspect that everything else started there.
How important do you think Karahunj is? Do you think one day that we're going to look at it like we do Stonehenge and the Giza Plateau and Gobekli Tepe?
Well, Paris Heroni, he was an astrophysicist, and he died, but he examined that quite extensively. He thought more of that, the Karahunj or Zoroaster more than what people realize. He thought that it was really the way to understand the cosmos, to understand the seasons and all that. And he explained quite extensively on what that could be, versus, let's say, other academicians who were saying, well, that's fairly new. It's just a grave, it's just a place where people died, and just tombstones and things like that. So you have these different perspectives, and I think that's as important as Gobekli Tepe. And get ready to find more stuff. I'm sure that we are able to find more if we can provide the financing for it, even several layers down. I mean, if we're talking about 10 and 15,000 years ago, of course, even 20 or 25, I mean, I would push it back to 50,000, just the way things are. I mean, you need time for people to get smart, for them to critically think, for them to understand nature. You can't just say 15,000, that's it. You need to give them time. Why instill alien concept when you can actually give credit to those people who were able to build that? They were able to be this smart people who were able to understand nature and represent nature through their means.
Yeah, well, there's so many ways to look at that, Vahan. It could be a situation like Atlantis, or another lost civilization from 100,000, 200,000 years in the past that rose to high technology and went away in some cataclysmic event.
Sure.
And the Armenians were in contact or were part of that culture and survived. And
Sure.
we're able to continue on with that knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, with everything that was going on in the Armenian Highlands, if you look around the world, you're talking very nearly Neanderthal walking around, and seriously, and hunter-gatherers, where in the Armenian Highlands, like you said, you had the chariot, you had the wheel, you had metallurgy, you had the first leather shoes, you had astronomy, you had advanced farming and wheat and mathematics. All of this was going on there and was influencing the rest of the world.
Sure, and the thing is, you have to look at what we have found also too. I mean, besides from the shoe, look at the shoe, for example. The shoe has been around for thousands of years, but once we took it out of the cave, it starts decaying. We don't know how to stop it. So those people were able to preserve that shoe in such a way it can be preserved, but we can't do it now. And also, one of the oldest iron sword was found in ancient Armenia, and it was dipped in arsenic to make it stronger. So if you're going to dip in arsenic, you are a chemist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing. And now one of the I want to spend the next 15 minutes talking about astrology.
Sure.
And astronomy. The representations that are showing up in Gobekli Tepe, and I'm specifically talking about Leo, Scorpio, and some of the other reliefs on one of the pillars there, that clearly show astronomical references to the constellations.
Sure.
And that didn't show up in Egypt for another... to 3,500 BC. Yeah.
7,000 years,
Yeah, 7,000 friggin' years. 7,000 years.
It's a very long time.
Do you think that the and I'm sure that Gobekli Tepe is saying this now, but the references to the constellations, could they actually have originated in Armenia?
Well, astrotheology was born in Armenia. All the zodiac symbols, all the animals were there for them to be formed there. You can see all the elements of astrotheology being born there. We're not the only ones saying this. All the evidence shows and points to that. If you're able to look at all this and look at the way they have represented the cosmos, and of course astrotheology was just an allegory, a story that they would say among themselves on how they look at the cosmos, but unfortunately it turned into something literal and brought the earth into chaos. But there is evidence, there's ample evidence that the zodiac itself was formed there because the way they looked at nature and the cosmos. Yes.
We know that Gobekli Tepe clearly sits in the Armenian Highlands. Have you been able to tie back some of the carvings and sculpture and also the representations of the T-pillars back to the area of Yerevan and Karahunj and modern?
Well, sure. If you look at the picture there, you see all the way on the top that looks like an iron or like a bag.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that bag is being carried all the way into Aratian Kingdom at 800 BC. That bag right there. You have a figure carrying that bag in Mesopotamia.
The purse. I call it the purse.
Yeah. So I don't know what the purse contains, but there's something in there. So as I mentioned before, that the person, the icon or the idol who's carrying that bag, was found in Armenia even before Gobekli Tepe was found. In other words, that was already carved in 2,900 years ago, which ties directly to Gobekli Tepe.
And what is it with that purse?
I don't know what is it, but I think that the continuum of memory and tradition never faded away, and there was some way somehow the ancients carried the memory all the way down to the current times for them to replicate all that.
In my research, I have seen this time and time again, and Rita and I have talked about this. We go and we look at these reliefs and carvings and sculpture, and we see that purse repeated over and over and over again, and it stands out like a sore thumb now.
Yeah,
I can find it nearly anywhere that and could it just originate? What does it mean? What does it represent? It means it was so significant that 12, 13, 14,000 years ago, an artisan carved it for us today. What does it represent? I just don't know.
Yeah, and I think that I personally think that if we allow just all this convergence of evidence to come through, and for us to use the Armenian language itself to decipher it, we may find the answer. I mean, we have the tree of life carved in the Sumerian inscriptions, and they have the bag also carrying that. Maybe it's a bag of seeds or even DNA, something that represents maybe a lab for something. I think that has to do with either procreation or a lab. Something represents some kind of information. I don't know. I mean, my guess is as good as yours.
With Gobekli Tepe, I can't wait to hear your answer on this. With everything that is there, 3D reliefs, of course, the pillars, the amount of circles that are there. But what's the one thing about Gobekli Tepe that freaks you out the most? And then I'll give you my answer.
Sure. Well, I think that, first of all, it's not a burial ground. It's actually astrotheological temple.
Really? You're going there?
Yeah. I don't think that's a burial ground. Actually, it is a city.
Yeah, I don't think it's a burial ground either. But
and also, if you look at from the top, you see the way it's a circle.
Yes.
Well, the Armenian Yerevan was built as a circle, the same way.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Yerevan was built before Gobekli Tepe was found. So if you look at from the top, they're the same way.
No, that's interesting. And that's why you're on this show. I did not know that. That is, I need to write that down.
Yeah.
I need to go back and check that out. What I think, and of course, none of us know, but
I'm listening.
I feel that Gobekli Tepe was more of a museum. It was a capture of time. It was that element deliberately buried so we would discover it later and we would know exactly what was going on there, not only with the animals and the agriculture, but a representation, a snapshot of their society, because they packed up and left.
Yeah.
They didn't come back and unbury it and use it later. What was the reason for leaving? Could it have been they knew about some catastrophe that was on the horizon? Maybe the weather changed, and they couldn't grow crops there anymore. Maybe that's it. Maybe it could be anything.
Right.
But they certainly didn't go back and unbury it. In fact, it was forgotten. So that's what I'm feeling that. I don't know. And
you may be right. You may be right.
And what about a religious aspect to it? What do you think? The religion would have been?
Well, if we look at, if it's a Neolithic society, it's Mother Nature, of course, and you would worship the woman. And women actually were gods before at that time, as opposed to men. It was a matriarchal society, because when the further you go back, the larger and larger the dolls or even the figurines become, which shows that the women were worshipped as goddesses versus the men. And then the closer we get to our time, then the men's worship became bigger as opposed to the women. And I think that they were able to, their worshiping game was nature itself, understanding nature and the cosmos, and it reflects all that. It reflects in the petroglyphs. It reflects on the Gobekli Tepe itself, that they were using animals and nature to understand themselves and the cosmos.
Well, I think that the culture that built that was, even if your imagination and mine right now, I think they were way more advanced than we even think. And I'll tell you why. It's that belt buckle. Okay, are you with me, Vaughn?
Belt buckle and the watch.
Yeah. Where is that kind of high fashion coming from?
I know.
At 10,000, 12,000 BC.
Yeah.
That belt buckle is either metal or it's carved from bone or what have you, but it's still a friggin' belt.
Yeah.
Which means fashion, which means a very, very conscious person, a thinker. Right. This wasn't somebody that was worried about foraging for food. This was somebody that was thinking unlike an animal.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think that the transition between hunter and gatherer to civilization took place much earlier than what we think.
What do you think the H represents on the belt?
The H? I don't know. It looks like an H, looks like a circle with a dot.
Yes.
So, I would represent it as the sun. I don't know. It beats me.
Yeah, it's
very difficult for me to even provide my opinion on that, because I haven't really thought of deciphering it beyond of what we already see today.
Well, yeah, what I do, I see art, and when you bring in art like that at that time, you're just talking about somebody that was advanced.
Well, we see a lot of geometry there. We see a lot of instances where they knew how mathematics was used for them to build all that, or even draw symmetrically. And of course, that tells me that they know mathematics and how to utilize mathematics.
Yeah, absolutely. And geometry completely comes into play. And there's another aspect to Gobekli Tepe I'd like to ask you about. The size of it now, and, numbers are out there, 20, 25 different stone circles. And now actually that's a number that's increasing, which is freaking me out.
Yeah.
But to build it is one thing, and to utilize it is another. But certainly you have to think outside of that. There had to have been a city there.
Yeah.
How many people had to have been involved in the quarrying, the transporting of the rocks? Some of these weigh 20, 30 tons. Then you have to have the support system into place. You had to have families. You had to have food.
Sure.
You had to have
motivation.
Structure.
You had to have motivation.
All of that. And now we're talking about, in my mind, thousands of people that civilization wasn't even supposed to be. It was supposed to be families and tribes running around.
Yeah.
What do you think was involved as far as a population to construct Gobekli Tepe, which didn't happen overnight? This happened over hundreds, if not thousands, of years.
Right, and the thing is, we're already having a trouble determining how the pyramids were built, and you're talking about tons and tons of material. But if you look at that itself, I think that they had a way for them to build it and put it in such a way that it was much of ease, because you couldn't just build something and just pretend that you're putting it together. And then what if it fell, for example?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So and the thing is, the way it has been carved. I mean, we're talking about 3D representation of ideas. And you have to have motivation. I think we need to look at the motivation. What would motivate those people to do all that? If we find the motivation, we would find all the meaning behind it.
Do you think anybody actually lived at Gobekli Tepe?
Yes, it looks like a city. Whatever I see from my perspective, and then the design of Yerevan, for example, it looks like a city. It looks, huts were around there, and if you're saying it was a museum, fine. But there was actually a place where astrotheology was practiced.
With the animals that are there, this is the other thing that it's not a stretch, because you have to consider what is actually being depicted in these carvings.
Yeah, they say Cyrus's the constellation is key when you look at the dove.
But some of the animals that are there weren't indigenous to the area. It was.
I mean, you could find a camel there too in the petroglyphs. That's what I'm saying. You have to look at the Armenian petroglyphs, because it has all the animals are depicted in the Armenian petroglyphs. There was a rhinoceros there, a camel. I'm talking about a camel. The camel was there. There is also. Have you seen Horus, the way he's represented?
Yes.
It's like a jackal, some kind of, and people didn't know what it was, and people were. Just contemplating what that animal is. Well, we found the same animal in the Armenian petroglyph.
And what about lions and tigers? I mean, those were running around in the Armenian Highlands at 12,000 BC?
Well, if you're able to look at that, yes. I mean, if you're able to draw a camel and a lion, I mean, they're mountain lions, yes. There were mountain lions in Armenia before, and eventually died down, and all the poachers killed it. But there were lions at that time. Yes, all the animals can be found. And that's why I urge people to really understand the Armenian petroglyphs, because it gives a good representation of what those people saw.
Flamingos?
Well, we even see certain symbols in animals that I can't even recognize, but it looks like something, a good representation of what they have saw.
Absolutely incredible stuff. Let's go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, now we're gonna move back forward. We've gone back to 12,000 BC, and then we're gonna talk about the cross-pollination, the migration of technology, and which directions everything went. And we will do all of that with Vahan Setyan when we come back. This is Fade to Black. I almost said Vetyan. Vahan Setyan. And we'll be back right after this. Stay with us. This is Fade to Black.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
KGRA Radio. Intelligent talk.
Are you a paranormal investigator, ghost hunter, or UFO skywatcher? If so, FNGinnovations.com has the product you definitely need in your investigations kit or go bag. Introducing the Morpholite Wide Beam Tactical Flashlights that put the light where you need it most. Traditional flashlights shine a focused round beam with limited line of sight in the dark. Morpholite Tactical Flashlights change all that, utilizing a revolutionary wide beam design to enable you to see safety hazards such as as hanging wires and steel, pipes, and holes in the floor you just can't see with a focused round beam. In the field, where safety is paramount, a 180-degree beam increases orientation and peripheral vision in the dark. Morpholite flashlights are ideal for investigations in abandoned facilities such as houses and hospitals, factories, caves, and tunnels. Avoid those low-hanging tree branches that poke your eyes in the woods. Visit fnginnovations.com to see a full line of tactical lights and accessories. That's fnginnovations.com.
Now you can find all your favorite talk radio shows live, all in one place at TalkStreamLive.com. Listen from anywhere, office, home, or in your car. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com and click on one of the many live talk show hosts you want to listen to. It's free and easy. No computer? Download the smartphone apps. Never miss your favorite talk show. Find them all at TalkStreamLive.com.
Hey everybody, what's up? Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and check this out. The 2015 MUFON Symposium will be held this September 24th through the 27th in beautiful downtown Irvine, California. Expanding ufology, opening new doors in academia, industry, and media. Former Defense Minister of Canada Paul Hellyer will be there in person. Former CNN news anchor Cheryl Jones, TV news journalist Jaime Maussan, and MUFON's chief photo analyst Mark D'Antonio. They're just a few of the growing list of names for the 2015 event. It's September 24th through the 27th at the beautiful Hotel Irvine. Get your tickets today at MUFONSymposium.com. That's MUFONSymposium.com. Gobekli Tepe.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony. Damn
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. Tonight, Vahan Setyan is with us, talking about the very cradle of everything. Tomorrow night, Larry Holcomb will be here. Thursday night, David Hatcher Childress. Yes, no fader night, no open lines. No, we're doing it for David Hatcher Childress. But tonight, it's Vahan Setyan. And hey, Vahan, you know, to the audience out there that's listening to this and saying, okay, what's next? Are you going to tell me that Noah crashed his boat in Armenia too? It's kind of like that, isn't it? It's like one example of everything. Oh wait, Noah did.
Yeah.
It's like that, isn't it?
You don't want me to go in there, but
why do you think, I'm just going to ask you the obvious question and then we'll move on from this.
Sure.
Why do you think the Turkish government just doesn't want Mount Ararat checked out? Why is it that it's there's something there? There's probably a lot there, not just evidence of Noah and the Ark or lack of it, but there's a lot of stuff there, and they just don't want expeditions to go down. Sure. Why is that?
Well, imagine if they allowed the Armenian people, or even the world itself, just to examine Ararat, because Ararat was the key hub of all those people there. Their folklore and their language, their heritage and culture is associated with that mountain. If you allow the Armenian people to go in there to examine it, everything all the arrows again will point to Armenia again, and Turkey will not have the influence that it is trying to gain at the moment.
Do you think Noah crashed his ark there?
Noah? Well, there is no evidence of a boat there at all. But you can have a small incident turn into this big event. And at the same time, if we're going after Noah, we have to go further back. I mean, the Sumerian inscriptions tell a little bit different story of what has transpired in those lands. So the concept of Noah is a sort of like a fabrication of older myths and older folklore, if you want to go that route. Because Noah, if it can be translated into Nahabet in Armenian, which basically says the same thing. But if you look at the Sumerian inscriptions, they say the same thing, and the same information has been instilled into the Old Testament as a way of depicting, let's say, a different ethnic group belonging to those lands. It's an artificial connection of people that are unrelated to Ararat. You see, once you make the Noah story real, then you start connecting all those people who do not relate there, like the Semitic people, for example.
Right.
They do not belong there because the folklore has to do with Indo-Europeans at that time. So once you bring life into the Old Testament, then the entire history changes. And I think that the Old Testament represents a very false perspective of history, and that has been disarray. And it's a bad way of you presenting history through the Old Testament. You have to go through what evidence says.
With the emigration is such a big part of Armenian history, and it didn't happen just once. It's happened throughout history. What's the population of Armenia proper today?
About 2 million.
About 2 million.
Yeah.
How many in Glendale? It's a bad joke, but you
maybe 500,000.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't that crazy?
It is.
And then New York, the Brighton Beach. I mean, how many in Brighton Beach? How many in New York?
They're saying overall there's about 10 million Armenians around the world.
Around the world, with only 2 million living in Armenia.
Yeah.
Why the emigration? Why was this constant throughout history? Because it spread knowledge, it spread technology, it spread language, it spread religion. It did all of that.
Yeah.
But it is it's a phenomenon. It's something that did happen. You have 2 million people that live in Armenia, and almost as many live here in Burbank and Glendale.
Yeah, I think that we can distinguish between, let's say, what's going there economically and politically now, and the emigration out of there, versus, let's say, why would the ancient Armenian Highlanders leave Armenia and go to different parts of the world to disseminate language and civilization. That's two different things. If we go back, let's say, in time and look at all these emigrations out of Armenian Highlands, you see a group going to the Indus Valley. We see a group going into Egypt. We see a group going to Polynesia because they're able to navigate. And that has to be taken in a different perspective versus what's happening now. It's not the same reason.
How strong was the influence into the Indus Valley?
Well, if you look at if you read the Rig Vedas, the Vedas themselves, they actually, it's an encounter of the Indians at that time there versus the Armenian Highlanders when they encountered them. The Rig Veda geography is all Armenia.
You're blowing my mind right now.
I'm telling you, take your time and read the Rig Vedas with all the information that you already know. Learn the Armenian language, at least some words, and then try to see how many Armenians you can find in the Sanskrit language.
Is there a culture that it hasn't been influenced by the Armenians?
Well, I mean, that really depends on how you look at it. I mean, whatever we see, we find influence in Ireland. We find influence in Basque, northern Spain. We see Armenian words in Polynesia. You know those big statues in Easter Island?
Yes.
If you look at the back of it, all the petroglyphs in Armenia are the same way as in the back of that megalith, those statues.
Is there any evidence in Mesoamerica?
Well, in the language, yes. you can find different languages. Actually, you can find different Armenian words in Polynesian language. I can give you a couple of examples. Actually, it was extensively done by Leila Stepanian several years ago. For example, when you say old, in Armenian you say hin, and in Rapa Nui, which is language there, is say hini, which is old. For example, when you want to say take it, you say dar, and they say dari, which is to take. You have several hundred words of that, very similar, and they mean the same thing between two languages. So all those statisticians out there who know probability, they should come up with a formula to determine whether this is just coincidence
or probable, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, we just have too many words between Armenian and, let's say, all the other different languages for it to be a coincidence, because we're comparing apples with apples, and they sound and mean the same thing. And the interesting thing is Robert Ellis, when he wrote the book The Armenian Origins of the Etruscans, he said that the Armenian migrations to those places around the world, including Italy, was done during prehistoric times. And Carl Schmitt, for example, when he wrote an article back in 2007 about the affinities between Armenians and the Celtics, he actually wrote that the further we go back in time, we see more and more connectedness with the ancient Armenian language, with ancient Indo-European language too.
When you say, somebody's going to say, give me the direct evidence on how some type of transoceanic event happened between the Mediterranean and Armenia and Easter Island, that nearly sounds impossible. So it's one thing to talk about petroglyphs on the back of the Easter Island heads, but what evidence would you have of some type of migration like that?
Well, look at it this way. We have to change our perspective. When we say ancient history, we have to go during prehistoric times. If they are able to navigate around the world, they're able to navigate and bring culture and heritage to the different part of the world. I mean, after thousands of years, you take a cultural tangent. You forget about all those things. The language evolves into your cultural perspective and the way you can enunciate words. So it doesn't mean there was no influence. If you have a connectedness between the petroglyphs in Armenia and on the back of the Easter Island statues, if you find language affinities between Armenian and the Rapa Nui in Easter Island, it should make you think, was it done in several thousand years ago or during prehistoric times? If they're able to have petroglyphs that represent large boats, can it be an opportunity for us to even contemplate the idea that they had the opportunity, if they knew how to navigate, they knew about the stars, they knew how to navigate around the world and disseminate, because everything that we see around us, all the arrows travel back to Armenia. I mean, even Basque folklores tell that their ancestors, were from Armenia.
Yeah, but that's easier for me to digest. That's just going across the Mediterranean, and you're landing in Spain eventually. You're going to get to Gibraltar, right? I understand that, but Easter Island and the Setyan clan rolling up on Easter Island and the Rapa Nui in boats, that's a bit of a stretch, or is it? I mean,
if I give you 30 words that mean and sound the same thing between Armenian and Rapa Nui, and then you have the petroglyphs in the back of the Eastern that coincides with petroglyphs in Armenia, wouldn't that make you think? How was it?
It's making me think now, but that's woof. And I don't doubt it. I don't. But that you are really trying to rock the boat at that point. I mean, that's a leap of faith and everything else. But those sculptures, and I need people to understand. I want the audience to understand the sculpture, the carvings and the petroglyphs of these boats, and they were large with sails and everything else. Are all over the place. It's not just one in the Armenian Highlands, and they did have access to advancing that technology. The Caspian Sea's right there, the Black Sea's right there, the Mediterranean's right there, and they certainly had the connections to other cultures that were shipping and trading throughout the Mediterranean with boats.
Just the way we're open-minded about Gobekli Tepe and helping it, let's say, rewrite history, even this idea between Israel and Armenia, it's not a far stretch. If you consider open-mindedness and the connectedness between one another. I mean, we don't need to delve on it too much. We need more investigation, but just the language alone, makes me think, how would two languages apart from one another be so close that you could actually represent a word or a term or even a verb, not only by it sounding the same, but meaning the same thing.
And what about tech? Okay, let's talk about the way technology went out, and I do mean this: north, south, east, and west.
Yeah.
Did it? Let's start with the UK and Britain.
Yeah.
Direct connection between Armenia and ancient Britain.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are attestations by Anno Lead about 1,000 years ago that talks about how their ancestors came from Armenia into Britain and Ireland. But there is a genetic evidence that too. Several years ago they did a genetic study between Irish, Welsh, let's say Basque, all those areas, and Armenia and Syria and Georgia. They found the closest affinity between Welsh, Basque, and Irish to the people in Armenia, in Sunik and Karabakh.
That's incredible. Okay, let's go to, let's just rotate. Northern Europe, Netherlands, Holland, Finland, that area. Is there a direct connection there?
Well, for me, I haven't delved too much into that area because I cannot say. But if we have to look at the Indo-European language itself, we have to follow the route and the chronology of it, because their language is Indo-European too. If we have to look at it from that standpoint, we can look at the language tree. Have you seen the language tree at all?
Yes, I've been studying it.
Yeah. Well, you have different representations of the Indo-European language and how it has evolved, you might say. And Atkinson and Gray, several years ago, they published this archaeogenetic representation of Indo-European languages, and they put Hittite and Armenian close to one another, and everything else following suit after that. However, in 1800s, Hilprecht, who was a German Assyriologist, he said that the Hittite is Old Armenian. So whatever we see in Hittite is in Old Armenian. So if you have that representation 150 years ago, and now you have archaeogenetic evidence saying the same thing, now you can see how the Armenian language itself gave rise to all the other different perspectives. Because you have to realize that if you look at the tree, there's a big difference between two languages. If they put, let's say, a Persian and Armenian next to one another, there's a difference of 3,000 years.
Right.
So we have to look at for the entire expanse and the chronology of the language development.
About 10 years ago, I had a Syrian Armenian friend of mine say to me these words. He goes, dude, the Hittites and the Phoenicians, Armenians taught them everything. Right? And I said, come on, stop that. Now, I haven't, I know what my in-laws are, my culture is, and I have great respect for all of that. But I stopped him in his tracks. I said, no, history does not say that. The books do not say that.
Yeah.
And it is.
Let me give you a couple of quotes from different linguists and historians.
Well, what I'm saying, Vahan, is today I understand differently. You know, but it was so ingrained in my brain that I didn't want to accept it. It was too much for me to handle.
Yeah.
I go and I do a little reading, I do a little research, and I start asking around about this, and then I find out that the world is a little bit different than we're taught. And it was a mind blower for me. And I was developing this anger.
Sure. Sure. And the thing is, whatever we are rediscovering or unearthing, that was actually very well known even maybe 150 years ago. For example, Hilbrecht in the 1800s, he said the Hittite tongue is Armenian and Hittites themselves were of Armenian stock. Peter Jensen said Hittite inscriptions require the Armenian language to be understood. Imagine the repercussions of what he's saying. Also, William Foxwell in 1800, he said, the Armenian reminds us of a Hittite in many ways. They cannot be separated. And Felix Lucian, who was from University of Berlin, he said Hittites were always represented like modern Armenians in Egyptian monuments. You see, now you have three different ethnic groups represented: Egyptian, Hittite, and Armenian, being represented in a relief or in a monument that connects to modern Armenians today.
I just pulled up, just for grins, this is for you and I to laugh at, right? So I've got right here the history of the alphabet in Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Okay. Mesopotamian, Phoenician, Aramaic, and Greek are the first four things mentioned as the earliest examples of everything. Now,
what is Aramaic? I mean, I don't even understand what Aramaic means. I mean, we already have Armenian terminology used to it. It's Old Armenian. So, and the chronology itself is really bogus because there is nobody to question it. How would an average person question the chronology that is being represented at different books? I mean, you would just go by it and say, okay, if a historian said it, it should be correct. But they never consulted with other people. They never consulted with older academicians who have passed away with their books buried under the dust and debris.
Right.
That's why my second volume is going to come up with all these different sources that were never even released to the general public, and it's going to represent things very different with enough evidence for it to support my arguments. I mean, my book itself, the first one, it's about 234 pages. And only at least 20 pages is just references, and that's why I wrote this book, because not because it's mine, because I want to present the people out there with all these evidences and scientific journals and articles for them to read and learn on their own. Don't take my word for it. And this is the only book of its kind that actually represents all the different historians and scientists who have actually talked about all this we're talking about today.
We're going to be, you know what, I'm going to ask you to hang on. You want to do an extra 15 minutes with me tonight? You want to stay up a little late?
By all means.
Okay.
By all means.
Before we take our break, which will be in 7 minutes, back to your gallery, image number, it's actually image number 1, is of the trench. Okay?
Yes.
What are we looking at here for the audience?
That's the oldest winery that was found in Armenia.
I wanted you to say that out loud. It's extraordinary. How old is this winery?
If we take it from our perspective, it's about 6,500 years old.
and you know what? For the audience out there, believe it or not, some of the best wine you can drink comes out of Armenia. Forget about France. Armenians have been making wine a long time.
Here's a quote from Hydrant Clark from 1800s. He said, "It was the migrants from Armenia who brought the wine." Now remember this. He's saying this even before this discovery several years ago. It was the migrants from Armenia who brought the wine by the Thracian ships to the Greeks at Troy. The Phrygians, Goinos, the Thracian Ganos, the Latin vinum, and ultimately the English wine is derived from Armenian Guinea. Assyrians first discovered the making of the wine from Armenians.
That's insane.
Yeah. I have hundreds of these.
Now, so if it went that way for the Greeks, then we would have to assume the Egyptians, we would have to assume the Romans,
sure,
and any other winemaking culture Was ground zero Armenia?
Well,
is there any other evidence of wine being manufactured in the world before 6500 BC?
Right. Well, I don't see it.
That's
the evidence doesn't show. Even the fossils of grapes and the roots, the oldest were found in Armenia. And don't take my word for it. You can research it yourself.
Well, I'm looking at it. It's right here. It's pretty incredible. All right, let's go to image number 3. It's the this infamous image of the swastikas and the crosses. Okay, so what are we looking at here?
Basically, it's a representation of all the oldest swastika and the representation of swastikas that were found, and you can actually find them in the Armenian petroglyphs. Again, I'm trying to emphasize the petroglyphs.
And what are the ages of the petroglyphs?
It runs between 18,000 years to all the way to 7,000 years. Again,
incredible.
18,000 years.
Incredible. And again, which rocks us back to the Ice Age.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the reason why the melting of ice and the environment and people in the environment those people were in that made them think how to persevere and how to navigate and how to look at nature. And I think that even the environment changed. How do we plant wheat and barley and so forth? Develop beer. So I think that if you look at the environment itself, we can see how those people were able to just adjust to the environment and evolve.
When we went from wild wheat to tamed wheat, did that happen? Did that happen in the Armenian Highlands, or did that happen down in Sumer?
Sure. Well, the difference between, let's say, Gobekli Tepe, for example, and Sumer when it was founded, it's about 5,000 years. We have to look at it from that standpoint. I mean, can you imagine the gap, how big of a gap that is for language to evolve, for continental and intercultural commerce to take place, and for them to borrow these ideas between one another?
Well, the domestication of wheat was probably, fire is a big deal. The wheel is a big deal. Mathematics is a big deal. But the domestication of wheat is why you and I are talking on this radio show tonight.
Right.
That was the turning point in civilization, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But without that, you can't have cities. You can't have anything. Did the domestication of wheat? Are we actually talking about the Armenian Highlands?
Absolutely. I'm telling you, if you're able to systematically harness agriculture, animal domestication, and you find wheat and barley there, and chickpeas, for example.
Yes.
Then you can see that all the other means that were developed there. I mean, if wool was developed there, that means that they were able to even start making carpets, the Armenian carpets. So carpentry was also built there because you're able to harness wool, make sure that you have the find and the means for you to build clothing.
Is there, Vahan, is there anything any ancient culture can lay claim to?
Well, they can. I mean, if we can see in a lot of all these books that everybody is inheriting the Armenian culture and heritage. I mean, we have to value each and every civilization. I'm not downplaying any other civilization. They do deserve respect of what they have done, but we have to see who did it first. We have to give respect to those ancients who gave those knowledge and ideas to those civilizations. Indirectly, we find it. I mean, we find where they find all these different, metallurgy, for example. The Assyrians, let me give you an example. They didn't know what iron was until they plundered a temple in Armenia 2,500 years ago. They didn't know what it was. They had everything in bronze. So imagine an Armenian soldier coming in with an iron sword.
Right.
It's like a knife through butter. So, yes, you had the plunders, which gave them ideas. You had intercultural commerce for them to give ideas. But all the evidence shows that that place gave rise to many firsts of civilization to the rest of the world.
Do you realize how many thousands of people right now are going, come on?
Yeah.
Come on. But I'm telling you, the audience, I'm speaking to you loudly, that we are presenting a view of history that goes against the grain of everything that we have been taught for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And I thank you for that. Let's take another break. It'll be our last break. We'll go into the fourth quarter, and we'll go through the rest of this gallery. This is Fade to Black. Tonight, Vahan Setyan is with us. And before you say, come on, go and do your research after this show. We're stirring the pot tonight here on Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. More with Vahan Setyan when we come back right after this. Stay with us.
Here, and you are listening to my boy Jimmy Church on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Attention, all Fadernauts. Studio Dome has a special deal on their SD1 Bluetooth speaker. Just go to JimmyChurchRadio.com, click on their banner, enter the promo code Jimmy, and you get $40 off and free shipping on the SD1. It's voice activated, comes with a USB antenna, cables, and a carry bag. Never listen to your phone, tablet, or laptop speakers ever again. It's the only way to listen to Fade to Black. That's JimmyChurchRadio.com, Studio Dome banner, promo code Jimmy, Gobekli Tepe.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
Hey, everybody, what's up? Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and check this out. The 2015 MUFON Symposium will be held this September 24th through the 27th in beautiful downtown Irvine, California. Expanding ufology, opening new doors in academia, industry, and media. Former Defense Minister of Canada Paul Hellyer will be there in person. Former CNN news anchor Cheryl Jones, TV news journalist Jaime Maussan, and MUFON's chief photo analyst Mark D'Antonio. They're just a few of the growing list of names for the 2015 event. It's September 24th through the 27th at the beautiful Hotel Irvine. Get your tickets today at MUFONSymposium.com. That's MUFONSymposium.com. Gobekli Tepe.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. What an amazing show tonight. I'm having so much fun. Nothing like an education. Hey, Vaughn. I want to share everybody just a quick story. This will be 30 seconds, but my nephew, our nephew, Armand, told us about you. And we were sitting around one night, having dinner over at our brother-in-law's house, his dad's house. And he goes, man, you've got to check out this guy, Vahan Setyan, right? And he said he's pulling up all the stuff, and he had said that he had met you, and I went through and checked things out. So I've got to give credit where credit is due.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Armand is the just an incredible young man, and his vision on this, and it was just one of those epiphanies in life, and we went and checked you out, and I was like, man, I cannot wait we have to chase him down, and we did. and we pulled that off. So special props to Armand. He's listening now. He just texted me. He goes, I said, okay, man. So there you go.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Now, the next image in the gallery is the Armenian alphabet. It's image number 4. Although I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because it's so deep. We could do 2 hours just on this one image here. We'll ask the audience to just go and start in the upper left-hand corner, end up in the lower right-hand corner, and just move left to right and go across and look at the connections. But there is also over on Vahan's website, which is vahansetyan.com. If you go there, he's also got another image of the Armenian alphabet that is also very good, and it's got some modern what's the word? Should I say Latin? Would that be correct?
Sure.
Representation. And just go and look. It's pretty amazing to check that out. So let's go to the next image, which is yes, the tree. Okay, so the mother tongue. Take us through what we're looking at here.
Well, if you look at the tree itself, of course, there are different representations of that. But what you actually see is what different linguists and historians and scientists have determined of the language tree. And all the way on the bottom, you see what it says, a Proto-Indo-European language.
Yes.
That, I think, is very problematic. But for linguists, it's a very safe haven. They basically are saying that, okay, I don't know what I'm saying, but let's just use the term Proto-Indo-European language as the mother tongue of the others. And even if we're wrong, we just can go back to it saying that it's a language that we're spoken. It doesn't exist anymore, as opposed to saying it the way it is. I mean, we can find numerous Armenian words that can only link to the Proto-Indo-European language. And even the word itself is incorrect. It's a political game. The Proto-Indo-European language actually was called Aryan before. Aryan language. And after Hitler, it all changed. They used Indo-European. And it says basically all the languages spoken from India all the way to Europe. That's what it says. But from the linguistic standpoint and from Hittite, let's say Armenian being linked to the Hittite quite closely, and I already gave you some quotes and descriptions of why we cannot omit Armenian when we decipher Hittite. Then we see that, let's say, even if we put Hittite and Armenian close to one another, it shows how it expanded into different branches, all the way up into Celtic and modern English.
Slavic, Baltic.
Yeah.
Germanic.
Yeah, so basically, the further you go up, the newer it is. And also, as an example, I always bring it up. The difference between Old English and Modern English is very, very different. You wouldn't be able to understand what it means. So what if you have 3, 4, even 5,000 year difference? So if you cannot find a commonality just by looking at it, doesn't mean they're not connected.
That's right.
Yeah. So
let's go to the next. Now, this chart, which is number 6, I spent a little bit of time on this today. I'm going to let you. It starts at 8700 BC.
Which chart are you looking at? I can't seem to look at it in my computer.
Okay, this is number 6, and it starts at the bottom with the Armenian list and goes to Greek and Afghan all the way up. At the top is Irish at 2900.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
is it a graph?
Yes.
Okay, well, that also is another representation of the language tree, just but in a different format. And every break there, as you see between languages, it's several thousand years. They just represent in such a way because it just deviates into a different format, into a phonetic representation of the language.
It's I just look at the I just look at the dates and the development at the top. I knew it had something to do with language, but I was just looking at the influence and how it just spread in a linear fashion.
Sure, and to go back to Atkinson and Gray's article when they used archaeogenetics, they put Hittite and Armenian to, let's say, 5,000 BC. As you can see, they're not even going off what we have as literature. They're going off what they find through genetics and archaeology. And when you look at it from that standpoint, you can actually see who influenced who and who borrowed from what. We have, let's say, words in English or in another language that they're using it, and they have owned it, you might say. But once you ask them, can you describe me what the root word is for that particular word that you're trying to own, they can't explain it. And when they cannot, that means it's not theirs.
And what goes with language goes technology and the sharing of information.
Indeed.
You know, you're trading all the way. That's it. You're communicating with the culture. You're trading art. You're trading technology.
Even gods too.
Yes, absolutely. Everything that goes along with it.
It's amazing, and you can actually look at gods and the names and how it's evolved. As an example, Armenians had a goddess called Anahit. If you read it backwards, it's Diana or Tiana in Rome. If you look at the god Ra in Egypt, if you look at backwards, it's Ar, which is the Armenian god. If you look at Indra and you read backwards, it's Ardeni, which was a temple in Armenia too that worshipped the god.
The next, I want everybody to jump. You can skip over the map and go to the next map with the red migration arrows that start from the center, which is the posted homeland, which is Armenia. Mm-hmm. What does this image represent?
This was developed by Gamgrelidze and Ivanov several years ago, maybe 20 years ago. It gives you representation how the Indo-European language and the people disseminated from the Armenian Highlands. And you can see it swerves around to Europe, and then it goes down to Iran or Persia, then all the way down and into Indus Valley.
Absolutely incredible. I didn't know about the Indus Valley. That's okay. The next map shows Turkey. This is an what's the word I want to use? An ancient map with Mount Nemrut and then Armenia on the right. What time period are we looking at here?
Mount Nemrut actually was a pantheon of gods that was built by an Armenian king of Komagny. And you see a representation of where the Mount Nemrut sits. If we go back, let's say, 2,000 years, it was part of Armenian Highlands. So it's a representation of the Armenian gods and goddesses that was built there, including all the names of the gods that are being still carried into people's names. And that was a good map for me to show that when you're looking at history, when you go back in time, you can actually use maps to determine where it fell and to which nation.
I'm looking at that the famous the head of Anahit.
Yes.
The sculpture. How old is that?
They're saying it's about 2,000 years old. However, it was in British Museum, and they were calling it ancient Turkish.
Of course they were.
And then after a while, it changed into Anatolia and Urartu. Still not good enough for it to represent who it is, but at least it was a good effort from the people to send all these letters to the British Museum. And British Museum, I mean, if you're a museum and you're having a bad connotation like that, where you call something that is not even true, calling it ancient Turkish, I mean, at least call it Anatolian. But if you're going to say that to the tourists, imagine what other things there are there, which tourists are oblivious about.
All of it. Let me help you.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah.
There's also another influence that I see over and over again when I look at the ancient sculptures in Armenia, there's a direct Roman and Greek influence in the art, in the way that I see things done. Am I wrong in thinking that this artistic style was influenced by the Armenians, or did the Armenians pull this back from the Greek and the Romans and this type of artistic view?
Well, if you're living during that time, of course you're going to share architecture and sculpture design. However, if you look at ancient artifacts in Armenia, let's say during times that even Rome or Greece didn't exist, you can see how detailed it was compared to, let's say, what we see in Greece. The temple, the oldest temple in Greece that is there, the way it's structured with a dome.
Mm-hmm.
There was a temple found in Musasir, which was called a Musasir in Armenia, which actually predates that by 250 years. And that was the template that was used by the Greeks to use.
Do you think, being in the Mediterranean, was Armenia visited by explorers from Greece and armies
Sure.
from
Can you
Rome?
imagine all the wars? I mean, we have evidence of all the wars, all the plunders, all the different migrations, and the catastrophe between the East and the West. Armenia is in the middle, so you can imagine all the different kinds of people going through there. And those people had to defend themselves and fight through wars, for not to get plundered and pillaged. And of course, you're going to take some things away, like the Silk Road, and find different ways of making food and pastries, all those ideas, architecture and mathematics. Even though, let me give you an example. In Greek, when we talk about mathematics, in the mainstream, they always say, the Greeks, let's say, developed the idea, and even mathematics, let's say, is a Greek word. But in Greek, it doesn't mean anything etymologically, but in Armenian it does. Mathematics comes from matemat, which means a finger upon finger, which, how do you count? You count with fingers, right? So matnemat means a finger upon finger.
Incredible. Image number 10 is, I'll let you say what it is, but since you can't see it, it's the image with the heads, the sculpture at the bottom of a hill.
Oh, that's Mount Nemrut that we were talking about. Those are the devastation after, whether it can be an earthquake or deliberately. That's the pantheon of gods and goddesses. You have Anahit, you have Aramazd, and then you have Dir. Dir also is there. Remember I told you about the national god of literature?
Yep.
Well, that's Dir right there. You even have Vahagan there, and Mihir was there too. Mihir is Mithra. Have you heard about Mithra?
Of course.
Yeah. They always say Mithra is Persian, but Mithra was actually invoked as a god between the Armenian kingdom of Mitanni and Hittites in 1800 BC. That's 1,000 years before Persian or Parthian Empire came about. So Mithra is not a Persian.
When were these at Nemrut? Is there any dating?
Well, Nemrut says it was built in the 1st century before Common Era.
So 1000 BC. Oh no, 1st century.
1st century before Common Era. Yeah, so 70 BC.
When I look at these faces and I look at the noses and the eyes and the way that these are carved, it looks like a combination of Roman and Greek. So it's like the influence went in the other direction.
Yeah, you have to have influence. You have to look at the lingua franca at that time. You have to consider what was popular at that time. And we're talking about an era where you had all these different influences upon one another. So, of course, you're going to find some kind of parallels between the two or three.
Now, when you look at Nemrut before the collapse, which is image number 11, and you look at the gods and goddesses here, it looks, again, I got to go there. It almost looks Egyptian.
Yeah.
And is it possible to have this kind of influence in the design of a temple, in the way that these sculptures are done and represented of the gods? Could the Egyptian, it's just bizarre to me to see this kind of influence, because you don't see this anywhere else except for in Armenia. Well, then you go to other cultures and you say, well, now maybe this is where they got it from.
And again, you have to consider the interconnectedness between the civilizations. If you have the Hyksos coming into Egypt, if you have the Armenian kingdom of Mitanni having intermarriages between Egypt, because Nefertiti, she was an Armenian queen from Mitanni, and her name was Tagopani. And then when she moved there and married Amenhotep, they changed her name to Nefertiti.
When
she brought monotheism from Mitanni to Egypt.
Yes.
And of course, and you know that too. And that's the reason why Amenhotep changed his name to Aten. Aten means eye in Armenian. Of course, you have the Eye of Horus and so forth in the monuments there after her arrival.
Yeah, she was definitely a rebel.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother show. We're at the end. I want to leave on a fun note. Okay, let's just put on our fun clothes for a second. Right now, Vahan, we have the entire country, if not the entire world, looking at the Kardashians. And and their influence on society today, and an entire generation cannot be overstated. Are you comfortable in the way that for anybody that has never heard of the Armenian culture, the Armenian people, or Armenia in general, that's what they see? They see the Kardashians. How comfortable are you with that, and what could be done about it?
Where it's very uncomfortable if that's going to be the icon of the people that actually have persevered since the last ice age to disseminate all this information to the world. And if we're going to have that, that shows me there's not only lack of education, but all the deliberate misinformation and falsification of history that hadn't allowed Armenian people to resurface on historical books. I mean, of course, you have Armenians, famous ones. You have Krikorian,
sure, who just passed away. Yes.
Yeah, you have Agassi. You have Sher.
Yes. Yes.
You have that, but once you realize these ancient things, then everything comes into perspective of how you're going to view the world and how you're going to understand the people. And it's going to take some time. I mean, you have more and more people who have come out of the coma, more and more academicians and scientists, revisiting the cradle of civilization. And even Dr. Lang back in 1970s wrote a book, Armenia, Cradle of Civilization. So we have all these people, Hancock and Collins, they go back to Armenia and they find all these different artifacts and discoveries. Once they write everything in a proper verbiage, then more and more people will learn the truth. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to bring all this information out there to the world, just for the future generations, just to start thinking and what has been hidden.
Well, you bring up Cher, and one of the things early on in her career, this entire Armenian aspect of things, she could have, she dressed as an American Indian, 40 years ago, and she never stressed or even talked about her Armenian heritage.
Right.
And it could have been a whole different thing today, because she was important. She was huge. It still is.
Sure.
And why do you think that was with her? Was it because maybe she thought that people wouldn't understand?
Well, I mean, if you're going to change your name for it to be pronounced correctly, that's also one of the efforts of hiding your ethnicity. But I mean, she went to Armenia. She's
proud of it now.
Yeah, she's proud of it now. And I think that once all this information comes forward, you remove inferiority complexes. You remove misinformation and falsehoods. You're no longer this tribe that didn't know anything. You actually had ancestors who actually developed all these new things, for the world to see and for the world to understand. And more and more younger generations are actually grasping all this, and they're proud of their heritage, what they have done. And I think it comes from respecting your ancestors, whoever you are, whether you're an Irish, whether you're a Chinese. Once you start respecting your ancients and what they have done, you start respecting your current generation in the future.
When's the next book come out? When does part 2?
It will come out in November, so I'll let you know.
And part 3?
Part 3 maybe in March of next year. I try to give at least 6-month gap in between, 6 to 8 months, for people to absorb all this data, because I'm sure there are going to be a lot of rebuttals, which I'm ready for. That's why I wrote Volume 2, which new information was going to support Volume 1. So I'm ready. And the thing is, this book, just my final note, this is just my token of appreciation to everybody, including you, to have the opportunity for you to read, for you to contemplate on it. I've been told it's a great bathroom reader, which is the greatest compliment I can have.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you go to Amazon.com, there are great feedback on it. And I just wanted to share this information to everybody in the world to start thinking, to read the data that is out there that hasn't been surfaced in historical books, and then go from there.
Thank you so much for all that you do, man. And all of the links for Vahan's website are at jimmychurchradio.com. It's very simple, vahansetyan.com. That's VahanSetyan.com. His other books are there. Great reading on the website. And Vahan, I can't wait to get you back when Volume 2 comes out.
I can't wait, Jimmy.
All the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
What a night. Vahan Setyan, everybody. Now, that right there, this, in the now, what we just did is what this show is all about. And I realize we bring it every single night. But tonight, I just feel great. That was absolutely an amazing night. I haven't, I'm going to tell you right now, and please don't everybody be upset. I didn't look at Twitter once tonight. I did not. I was focused, and I needed to hang on every word, and I hope that you did too. But tonight was a very special night, and it takes a lot. And what Vahan just said at the end there, he's ready. He knows there's going to be blowback. He knows, but he is prepared and he is ready, because this goes against everything. I talk about Gobekli Tepe every single day on this show. I talk about the importance of, I brought up on this show probably for the first time anywhere on shows like this, Karahunj, and the importance of this. And I know, and I did this a couple of times with Graham and other researchers here. When I bring up Karahunj and I bring up this stuff, it's because nobody else talks about it. They don't want to. They ignore it. They push it back. The Armenian Highlands and that part of the world is more important. That's it. It all points back to there. And it doesn't mean rewriting history and rewriting history books and taking another look at the way that things are represented. You know why? Because everybody, all those cultures from around the world, and it doesn't have to necessarily be in the Middle East, but all around the world, want a little piece of this and that, and grab it and grab it and grab it. We did this. You know what? Everything points back to that area, and Vahan is preaching. It's very important, and I'm glad that he was on the show tonight. It's just meant the world to me and to Rita. Thank you so much, Vahan. Armand, you get all the credit. And this is Fade to Black. Tomorrow night, Larry Holcomb is with us. Holcomby. Presidents and UFOs, a secret history from FDR through Obama. And then Thursday night, David Hatcher Childress is right here. What a week on Fade to Black. Thank you to Vahan Setyan. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kumarian. Show's produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee, Mark Dunbar, and Jonas. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, Mark D. Kovar, Fady by Dale. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music is this guy right here. That's Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy at spaceboymusic.com. Syndication by KGRA The Planet. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2015 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network and cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I want everybody to be safe. Gobekli Tepe.